Hello, thank you for joining me. My name is Megan Helverson. I'm an autism and emotional behavioral disorder specialist through 916. Today I'm going to be talking about strategies on the fly, specifically first then. What the research says. There's a ton of information out there regarding visual supports. One of the coolest things is we know that visuals help to create independence. This is a life skill that all of our students need. We also know that visuals can help by highlighting key concepts. It allows students to focus on the information that we want them to focus on. It takes away all that extraneous information and really highlights that key information. Visuals also help to make abstract concepts concrete. Again, spoken language is here and then it's gone, where a visual support can be with us at all times. And it really helps students to be able to generalize skills across settings. Visuals also help students to express their thoughts, their feelings, their needs. This is a foundation to learning. Visuals support routine, structure, and sequence. This in turn reduces anxiety and supports transitions. Why do we use them? We know that visual supports can help to decrease behavioral issues. This happens because we're reducing that student anxiety. We're letting them know what's expected. We're giving them that roadmap. Visuals increase flexibility. It creates routine for changes. It's letting students know that a change is occurring by the first and then the then. First thens increase on-task attention. We're teaching that delayed engagement and that preferred interest, which is that then. We're increasing student independence. We're letting students know what's expected without the adult continually prompting them. We're giving them that visual support and stepping back. A first then encourages literacy. It instructs comprehension and reaction to visual information, which is a precursor to reading. It also increases abstract skills. Again, we're pairing that visual with the meaning, which is crucial for our students. Who can benefit from a first then? Students who exhibit difficulties with following directions and learning new skills. Sometimes our students need skills broken down into simpler tasks or steps. A first then can provide you that support to do that. Students who are struggling to get through a half day or a full day visual schedule. Again, scaffolding small changes help students to gain independence. We're providing a structure within that larger structure. Students who need motivation to complete activities that are not preferred. Again, we're giving that visual of first this, then this. So we're using that then as that preferred activity to increase that student motivation. Students who demonstrate difficulties with being independent. Again, we're giving them that tool, making sure that they understand, and then we're stepping back. We're giving them the tools that they need to be successful without us there. A first then can also benefit students who struggle with receptive language. First then boards set the stage for that language foundation needed to complete multi-step directions. What is a first then? A first then is basically a board. It's a visual representation of what comes first and then what comes next. It helps to create predictability and motivation. Here's some examples. The first one is a visual representation of an object-based first then. So we're providing something that a student can see and feel. So it'd be first book, then tech deck. Again, we're creating that motivation by that preferred interest that that student has. The next one is a representation of first book, then Play-Doh. So it could be just a basic picture. If I don't have a basic picture, I can write it out. So this is a strategy I can use anywhere. I could draw first read, then color. Some students may need an actual representation of what their classroom looks like or what it's going to look like at recess to really help them understand what's expected. So I could take a picture and put that onto my First Then board. Here's a First Then with words. So this is where a student would not need that visual picture, but they can just understand that sequence with the word math and then iPad. The next is an example of First Then and how we can build upon it. So first, maybe we start with teaching the First Then. Once we gain success with that, we can add the next. So we're scaffolding, we're building those skills for that student to be able to handle multiple directions and information. How do I use a First Then? First, we want to decide what the task is we want our student to complete first. So we're thinking about what's going to go in that first box. Then we're going to think about what's going to be that preferred activity we want to put in the then. We want to make sure that that then activity is something that we can immediately honor after that first task is completed. The preferred activity should be motivating for that student. Again, that goal is to increase the likelihood that that student will follow the direction. Remember, many of our students will need those intrinsic motivators. Upon skill development, this is something that hopefully can be shaped. After we determine what's going to go on each box, we're going to put the visuals on the board or on the piece of paper, or whatever format we're using. Again, we can use photos, drawings, written words, objects. We want to make sure that whatever we use is geared to that student's level of understanding. The activities that we are going to put in here is going to represent the activities that we identified in step 1. Next, we're going to present the board to the student. We can provide a brief verbal instruction. We want to limit that verbal information as much as possible. We're going to let that board, that visual representation, speak for itself. So when I'm starting to teach a student, I may just say, first, media lab, or read the book, then break time or color, whatever the activity is that I point to. Some students may need a little more support to start off with because they're learning the system. I could prompt them if needed. I could say, you're almost there. We're almost done with media lab. You're earning your break time. So I can provide that verbal reinforcement or that duration map as needed, depending upon my student. So it's really knowing your student and knowing what supports they're going to need. When the first task is completed, I want to refer back to the board. I can say, reading is done. Excellent job. You did it. You now earned your break. Again, I want to make sure that this activity and this then is immediately given to the student upon the completion of the first, because I want to build that rapport and that trust with that student. Sometimes we'll encounter challenging behavior. If unexpected behavior occurs, we really want to keep the focus on the task instead of that challenging behavior. So that's me pointing to the first instead of saying, sit right up in your chair or don't rock. Instead I could just give them that visual cue by pointing to what's expected, that reading or that math. Again, so I want to ignore the junk behavior whenever possible and focus on the system. We can visually point to that to give that student that visual cue. Don't give up. This is maybe a new strategy that the student is learning, and sometimes new things take time to learn. So we really want to support that student by practicing. Remember that the then may change. Children's interests change all the time. So we want to make sure that this is always motivating. Sometimes I'll have a novel bag of items that I'll keep for the then, and I'll just have a picture of that bag. So the student, is going to be surprised on what that motivator will be, but that's what it takes to get their engagement. I can also think about if I know that the student is really successful in math, this may be a support that I want to introduce in math. I want to build that motivation. I want to build that success. So if I know math is typically successful, maybe I introduce this in math. And then once I gain success and understanding with the system, I then generalize it into a subject that's maybe a little bit more difficult for that student. So say reading or language arts, writing, or something like that. So I want to make sure that if challenging behavior happens, try to introduce it in an activity that I know that the student typically does well with. I hope I covered this in depth. If you have questions, feel free to contact me. I'm always willing to brainstorm ideas on how this could work for your student. I've also attached a ton of resources. So if you're looking for additional information and support, please feel free to check these out. Thank you so much for participating in this edition of Strategies on the Fly, and I look forward to our next opportunity to learn. Thank you.